Is camp the right environment for a person with raging ADHD?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Remember what sparked your passion for camp? Ultra Camp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Why spend hours on your schedules only to find mistakes and missed activities for your campers? Let Camptivities do the heavy lifting and help you create the best schedules yet, without the mistakes and in less time. Come check out Camptivities, specifically designed for camps by camp people. Find out more at camptivities.com.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by Ultra Camp, Camptivities, and the Staff Recruiting and Retention email course from Beth and Matt and myself. My name is Travis Allison. I am a summer camp consultant specializing in getting parents to open, read, and act on your emails.
I'm Kelie Cook. I'm the camp director at Pine Ridge Day Camp and co-host of Scamp Life, The Other Side.
I am Shauna Guglielmo. I am the camp coordinator at Lincoln Park Zoo Camp in Chicago, Illinois, located in the United States of Hell, formerly the United States of America. And I am the co-host with Kelie on, what's our podcast name again? The Other Side, Scamp Life, The Other Side.
Well, I'm grateful to welcome you both to CampHacker. I appreciate that we're going to do this. So if you're a longtime CampHacker listener, we will be doing two podcasts today. So one here, one on the other side, and I definitely hope that you will go to the other side and sign up, listen to all their shows. But if you're drawn here because of your ADHD, then you can find that particular episode where we're going to do a slightly different topic, but we wanted to pair them together. So welcome to both of you. I'm grateful to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Can you actually, as a first, Kelie, would you mind telling me, just give me the highlights of what you folks like to talk about on Scamp Life? You're the other side.
Oh man, I feel like nothing is off the table with us. I started it when Kurt Jackson and Chris Cowell passed me the torch because I used to be on their show for a short bit, and then they said, "Here you go, have a show." And we started off with like big topics that are not necessarily controversial in the industry, but big conversational topics. And then when I swapped up my hosts and brought Shauna on, we decided to just anything and everything camp, anything from controversial topics to just big things that we wanted directors to just think about. And even if they haven't had those conversations yet, just start bringing that in. So, I mean, we've talked about weed at camp. We've talked about DEI. We've talked about just fun stories that camp, like that's a new one this season, is we asked a bunch of camp counselors like secret stories and things, and we just shared them anonymously. So anything just really to have fun, but also get people talking.
That's amazing. Kelie, how'd you get connected to camp?
Oh man, I don't remember a time when camp was not in my life. I was a camper at Frost Valley YMCA growing up as a kid.
Hey.
Yes, so all of those camp pros over there I know very well, and turned 18. Worked there for a little bit seasonally. I am a theater tech major and decided I did not want an internship, unlike everybody else, and I went to camp. So after college, worked at a couple more camps seasonally in the shoulder seasons, and then in 2015 was hired full-time at Y Camp Horse Thief out in Idaho, part of the Boise Y, and the rest is history. And so this year will be 10 years in full-time camping.
Amazing. That's great. Thank you. Shauna, how'd you get connected to camp?
Much like Kelie, I can't remember a time when camp wasn't a part of my life. I went to like the local district day camps as a kid in my neighborhood, and then I started working at the district camps and camp-esque programs that they would put on for like spring break. And then after I graduated college or high school, I moved overseas for a little bit and worked at a bunch of youth development. Well, not a bunch. I worked at one youth development place, but I did a bunch of things there. And then camp found me again when I was in college, and I was unhoused actually, and camp gave me a safe place to have during the summer. And that is how I've been in camp ever since. My degree is in English, so not doing what I was supposed to be doing or what the plan was, but I am so happy with where I am now. And like Kelie, I'm going into my 12th year, but 10 years at the zoo. Yeah.
Well, I'm super grateful to have you both here. And as I alluded to at the beginning, we're going to spend these 2 episodes talking about ADHD and camp leadership. Camp Hacker listeners will know this has been a bit of a theme for me for the last year. This is my third show in 12 months on ADHD and camp leadership because last year, just on a whim, I submitted a session to Tri-State about being a camp director with ADHD, and I was overwhelmed with the number of people that showed up, including Kelie. That was the one session, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought so. And I was just overwhelmed by the response, by how full the room was, and how people came up to me afterwards and said, I thought it was just me. And the answer is no. It's not just you. And honestly, I think other than firefighter or paramedic, or nurse, like these are the best jobs for people with ADHD. Camp director, because it's lots of variety and fairly intense period with a chance to rest. So I wanted to spend some time talking about that, what that's been like for each of us. I reached out about this in email, but I would like to ask you again, when did you find out you had ADHD?
Well, I could share my story. My mom found out in kindergarten when the school wanted to test me, and she said no. So,
Oh no.
and then they asked every year until basically, I don't know, like fourth grade, and then they just kind of gave up. We were not wealthy, and in the United States, we don't have universal health care, so it would have been really costly for me
The
to
cost of
have
testing,
this
yeah.
like, yeah, like, and medication and all of that. So I have recently been diagnosed last April or March. And it's been really great knowing that like I have this thing. This whole time my mom was like, "No, you don't." And I was like, "Are you sure?" Um, so it like really helps me interact with the world better because like I know how to make the world work better for me now that I know that like I have this thing and it's not just like me being unable to function like everybody
Yeah,
else can.
yeah.
So that's been wonderful.
So I
And you,
have
Kelie?
similar but different.
Hmm.
I've my brain's always gone a million miles an hour,
Hmm.
but within the last 4 years or so, based off work in camping and youth development and mental health and all of that, I became very much in tune with my brain and went down the track of seeking out a diagnosis for actually anxiety and depression and
Yeah.
got on medication for that, and that quieted the brain for a little bit, and then I realized the voices are back. That why aren't they going away? They're they're still bouncing a million miles an hour. And
Mm.
so I asked my mom, I said, "Hey, I think I've got ADHD." And she goes, "Yeah, we thought so when you were a baby because you never stayed on one toy very long." And I just was
Mm.
like, "Okay, that's fine." So I lived with it for a while. And actually, a couple months ago, I talked to my therapist and I was just like, "Okay, I know I'm not formally diagnosed. However,
Yeah.
it's starting to hinder my work." So I took care
Yeah.
of the anxiety and depression, but the overwhelm shutdown, I was starting to get more and more of it and more noticeable and knowing what it was, because again, working with
Yeah.
my therapist and everything. And I said, okay, I would like to go on medication because it's hindering my work, but I do not want a stimulant. So she gave me some ideas, went to my PCP, primary care provider, and asked, do I need to get tested for, I'm on Wellbutrin, and I asked, do I need to get tested for it? So they said, no, we can prescribe it because you've been, talking to somebody at least. And so it has helped wonders. I mean, I still have the voices, but they are much quieter. And I find myself being able to leave my office and get all the tasks done that I want to get done as I leave the office. And then when I come back, able to cross them all off instead of adding 6 different ones. So
Yeah.
it has definitely helped tremendously.
I appreciate both sharing that and talking about therapy too. I've talked about my therapy on the show before and also my dealing with depression for a long time. That so I was not diagnosed until I was in my late 20s. And even then it was like, yep, that's you. And that was the end. And I was given no coping mechanisms or anything. And COVID just all of, because I had been dealing with depression quite well until COVID, and then 2021 I just crashed out, and that made all my ADHD symptoms a lot worse, and all of the things that I had done that used to work didn't work, and so that's when I tried stimulants a few times before 2020 and stayed on after 2020, and stimulants happened to work really well for me, but I'm also taking Wellbutrin for my depression symptoms, so I'm kind of getting a double dose. I'm getting it from all sides, but I appreciate your openness, both of you telling that story. So the thing I'd like to just sort of, for those listening who recently diagnosed, we know that there's a great wave of women being diagnosed in their 30s and 40s because their kids get diagnosed and they're like, wait a minute, that's exactly what my life is. But I think I wasn't diagnosed as a kid because I wasn't particularly, I didn't move a lot. I just, like, I could read. And that was an easy hyper focus for me, is I could just read for hours. But I realize now that I could read for hours because it would shut off my head and it, give me a place to put my focus. And that also meant that I learned a lot because I could read a lot, and I think that also helped hide the other symptoms. Kelie, I'm curious about, and if you don't want to talk about this, let me know, we can take it out, but I'm curious about you talking about the voices in your head. 'Cause I don't have voices, I have one voice. I have a narrator in my head, and I didn't realize until probably 4 or 5 years ago that I mean, it's pretty common, but it's not everybody doesn't have a narrator in their head. And that's a very strong symptom of ADHD, is some form of discussion going on in your head at the same time. And I remember I just recently watched Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew with Beth. And after the first episode, I was like, there's where my brain was the whole time, my whole childhood was, maybe I'll go into the woods and find something magical that'll let me go off and big, like, I was just telling myself those stories every day in school. And that's, anyway, I knew that stuff I could get past in school. I didn't do great in school, but I wonder what the voices are like for you. I want to ask because I think that that's not very acknowledged. I'd like to talk about some of the symptoms of ADHD that people may not realize are symptoms of ADHD, just how it affects each of us. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a narrator too. My narrator typically shows up at night at 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
However, I also have a couple others, and I feel like they're just multiple narrators, if that,
Sure.
yeah, that do different things. So like I have the narrator that I feel like a lot of us talk about, like we have them narrating our life and doing things and having the little side quest conversations of like playing either out a future conversation or replaying a past conversation.
100%. No.
Uh, but I also have the ones that just kind of go zing and like either I'm singing out loud, but it's not like the full song, or I
Yeah.
also have the music that just plays in my head, which I don't think is a narrator at that point. It's just, and it's not even a song getting stuck in my head, right? Because like even if I listen to the song halfway through that song, some other song will just be in my head even though I have the song on. But yeah, so the voices are always different, but I do have the
Mhm.
narrator too. I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with my narrator, and yeah, it's a fun time for sure. But it's like I want to say it's been helpful at times for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you want to plan future conversations and the narrator comes in. If we're relating it to camp, like parent conversations are a huge one that plays
Yeah.
prior. If I know it's a planned conversation, if it's not planned,
Mm.
then forget about it. Then it's, the past conversations. But if I know I have to call a parent or I know I have to have a crucial conversation with a staff member, like, yeah, it decides to come in and do that. And it's a lot of fun.
Just work through that conversation. What's it like for you, Shauna?
Yeah, I have the narrator. The narrator and me are great friends. Much like Kelie with the songs, I have the same thing. I thought that was just unique to me, but apparently nothing's unique in this world. There's no unique human experience, which is comforting sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've got the narrator. My executive dysfunction is awful, which is true for many people with ADHD, but sometimes I feel like mine is worse. I mean, also just based on conversations that I have with my therapist and my psychiatrist. So,
Mhm.
like, I'm medicated as well. I'm on a non-stimulant because I have inattentive. Stimulants just make me crazy. And I'm also on Wellbutrin. So that's so funny that we all have the same Medline.
Yeah.
But yeah, the narrator helps me figure out conversations. I wish that narrator could help me figure out conversations in the moment, because like that's when
Right.
I need the
Instead of later.
narrator to be like,
Mhm.
yeah, like remember all of the good points that we know in our head. And then when it comes time to have like the actual conversation without prompting or without like rehearsal, like I just can't do it. Like sometimes talking to parents in the moment is so overwhelming to me, and I just like trip over my words because I don't want to say
Yeah.
anything like wrong,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
also want to get my point across, and it's really hard sometimes. But yeah, the hyper dysfunction is like, for the executive dysfunction is like not so much at work, but it's more in my home life. Like keeping my apartment clean is
Yep.
so hard. But if I had somebody living with me, I could totally do that because then I would be like accountable to them. But by myself, I'm like, nah, those dishes have been there for like a week. I don't care. Like it's hard. But at
Mine's
work,
totally
because there's other
opposite.
people.
I live with my husband, and I still can't put the clothes away in my closet.
But doesn't he
They're
have
clean.
ADHD too?
Yes and no. I don't really know if he does
Okay.
or not. He's not medicated if he does. But yeah, but like if he leaves dishes for a week in the sink, that bothers me. But I also
Right.
won't do
Oh,
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
yeah, it would not bother me. Like, you can leave them in there for as long as you need. I'll just work around it. Like I work around my mess. But yeah, at work, I feel like the ADHD kind of like reminds me that I have to be more organized
Yeah.
because it's a shared place and I am accountable to other people and my campers and my staff and
Hmm.
everything. So
Hmm.
definitely at work, more so in conversations, people notice because
Right.
Kelly knows we have to edit our podcast heavily because of our side quests and tangents and the tunnels we go into. But at work, pretty much doesn't affect me too much. Yeah, which is nice. It's
Yeah.
the home that is the problem.
Shauna, you talked about executive dysfunction, and I don't want to be unfair to those of us who aren't living in our three heads, and just make sure we define a few things along the way, because I know people will listen to this because they care about other camp directors who do have ADHD, and they're not that
hmm
person. Executive dysfunction, what does that mean to you?
So it's a dysfunction in like your frontal lobes. So think about
Mhm.
like an 8-year-old that just cannot understand like that they have to do this thing in order to get something else done. So like, why do we have to do our homework first? I just want to play my video games, but like
Yep.
not being able to do the homework, even though it's really simple for them and they're going to get it done in 10 minutes, but you just can't do it. Like I'm looking at a garbage bag right now that I've been trying to take downstairs for 2 days. And also, I've had the flu for a week, so I'm giving myself a break. But like, it'll take me less than a minute to walk to the alley. I live in the city, so like walk to the alley and put my stuff in the bins. But I literally just cannot do it. And it's not because I don't want to do it. I just can't. And it's so hard to explain that to people
Yep.
sometimes,
It is.
but it's literally an inability. It's like if you have asthma and you're having an asthma attack and you can't breathe. Like that is what the equivalent to it is. Like there is something within your body that is stopping you from doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that is one of the hardest things for people to understand who don't live here, is that it's
hmm
not that I don't want to do it. It's
Like we're
not that I
not
like
lazy.
this feeling. I do not
Yeah.
like this feeling, but sometimes the feeling makes it worse for me to do. And the amount
Yep.
of things that are
Yeah.
like, damn it, that was a minute. Like I've put this off for days. It took me 5 minutes to solve this problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough here.
Every year, it's the same thing. Lots of hours spent working on the daily schedules, only for there to be mistakes, missed activities, and lots of stress. Why is it so difficult? There's got to be a better way. And there is. Camptivities, an activity scheduler made specifically for camps. Group scheduling or camper scheduling, we've got you covered. Different day schedules, no problem. Auto scheduling, elective scheduling, batch scheduling. Schedule the way that works for your camp. With over 60 reports, you'll be able to see the data easily. When a parent calls and says, my camper didn't get an activity week 1, pull up the group activity tracker and see exactly when that activity was scheduled all summer long. Modernize the way you do activity scheduling. Make it easier to collaborate with team members. Get rid of the mistakes and make sure your campers are getting to all of your activities. We'd love to show you the next big thing in camp. Now's the time to find a better way to schedule this summer. Don't wait. Next summer will be here before you know it. Let us help you get away from your desk and back out in camp. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat.
Exclusive to CampHacker listeners. Generate fresh ideas for activities, staff training, marketing campaigns, and more with UltraCamp's plug-and-play AI prompt guide. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Why struggle with multiple systems when one can do it all? UltraCamp offers a platform that simplifies your work by combining all aspects of camp management into one seamless solution. UltraCamp brings everything you need into one easy-to-use platform. Plan schedules and activities with just a few clicks. Register and track campers easily organize, schedule, and automate your communications. Manage payments and donations seamlessly. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Let me say a couple of other sort of general things about this. One, everybody's ADHD is different. Two, the three of us aren't doctors, so don't take what works for us as prescriptive. Three, there is more psychological effects to this than just the getting things done effects of this. And partly because the research shows that growing up with ADHD, you experience negative consequences from adults 20,000 more times than other kids. And it has gone, I'm sure it's the same for all of you. It's gone from, why didn't you finish this? Why is this homework so crappy? I can tell you to the last minute, to why are you so lazy? And a camp friend of ours, she worked with us at camp, realized she was working for us when she was in college. Her college roommate's mom was from my hometown. Her college roommate's mom was one of my teachers in high school. And so Rebecca told her college roommate that she knew Travis Allison. And this teacher's response was, oh, Travis Lazy Allison. And this was probably 25 years after high school. And it was like, yeah, well, there you go. And I know I skated on a lot of privilege in high school and in life, probably, of course, but just that kind of stuff happens to us all the time and obviously builds up over time. Is there anything that either of you would like to say just to help people understand what life is like?
Yeah, I think for me, so I wasn't one who got a lot of consequences, necessarily, but I would have I miss the details. I get that feedback a lot. You keep missing the details. So I get the bigger picture and I'm able to get it done. But then I have people being like, well, you missed this. I had a camp director tell me oh, you want to be a camp director, you should have dealt with the overflowing toilet and plunged the toilet instead of XYZ. It's like, okay, but that was not I was in whatever crisis. I handled the
Sure.
crisis and okay, I missed the toilet, or, doing something, I get it done. And it's like, okay, well, what about this detail? And it's like, oh, but I got it done.
Yeah.
But you missed it on homework. I was not a very good writer. I would
Yeah.
get, again, the general gist of things and not be able to describe a sentence or formulate the paragraph the way it's supposed to go because my brain just jumped around.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I wasn't so much the kid who got in trouble, but I missed a lot, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I wasn't outwardly ADHD, but I did get the, needs more detail here and there because I wasn't able to go into the focus of the detail. I just talked about it broadly, but then also jumped to the next topic. So that's for me a lot of it. So when you talk about school, I noticed that I've had supervisors tell me that over the years. I've had professors tell me that. So it's definitely a trend that I do try to
Yeah, of course.
to fix, but I'm also not one who likes to proofread my work. So again,
Totally.
ADHD,
Yep.
not wanting to proofread my work. So I do try, but again, I have to be in the mindset of proofreading it to figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's so funny, Kelly. I wonder if this is why we complement each other so well because I'm the complete opposite. I
Yeah.
have to have a contingency plan for a contingency plan for a contingency plan for a contingency plan. And I think growing up, a big part of my ADHD, which is probably why after like third or fourth grade they stopped asking my mom, was because I figured out how to behave in school the way that they wanted me to, and I was able to mask from a very early age. And I've also been diagnosed with anxiety from a very young age too, so I'm sure that plays into it. But like this need for perfectionism, like I remember when we were learning cursive, and I was cursive to the young crowd is a way where you string all your letters together and make it look very nice. I know you don't learn that now. But I remember I felt like I was making terrible letter D's, and I was like hysterically crying in class. And my teacher kept
Mm.
coming over and being like, "This looks exactly like the one on the page." And I would like point out the things that were like slightly off and just like couldn't manage. So, yeah, I like to have a lot of plans. Even now, I think as an adult, like the most frustrating thing is like when you're working in a team is that like I can see a plan in my head very quickly
Yep.
and have like like if this doesn't work out right, we can do this and this and this. And
Hmm.
it takes my team a longer time to catch up with me. And that gets very frustrated because I'm like, what aren't you seeing? I don't know how to make this any more clear. It's going to work out. It's going to be fine. So I have to remind myself that my brain just works a lot faster. And just because of the way that I've learned to mask and reprogram it to make the world work better for me, that I have to give people the space to be able to catch up with my brain because my brain is
Sure.
the one that's the odd one out. So
So I want to make sure we define masking. Masking is hiding how our brain works to fit in. That's, I think, the most simplest term. If any of you have any other definitions, I'd be open to them. But unmasking is the ability to, unmasking is the time and place when you can let down that guard and do it your way. Like for me, I have to have a couple of hours at night where I don't have someone else controlling my time or I can't sleep. And I just need the freedom of I can do whatever I want for this time. I don't have to be watching a clock constantly. So that's a chance for me to relax. There's a couple of other things I wanted to just pick up on, and I'm happy to take this anyway, leading into how we develop our coping skills and what they are, as I think probably based on time where we'll get to in this discussion, but stay tuned for the other discussion. Go find the other discussion where we pick it up again. Executive function, executive dysfunction. I often think about that as it's I mean, I have my degree was in psychology, so I saw a lot of this, but you probably have seen a YouTube video on a kid doing what they call the marshmallow test, which is they put a couple marshmallows in front of a kid as an experiment and say, I'll be back in 5 minutes. If you don't have the marshmallows now, I'll give you more marshmallows. But if you have the marshmallows now, that's fine, but you won't get more marshmallows. And the executive function is, oh, I understand that I'm going to have more benefit later. But a problem, it's often called time blindness with people with ADHD, is that our brain cannot, we know that there is a future, but we can't understand what that means. And that's just kind of one of the examples like, but for me, the marshmallow test would have been don't eat it, don't eat it, don't eat it, don't eat it. I think about something else, and then all of a sudden I go, oh, 5 minutes is up. So I would have, it would have been not motivated by the, oh, I'm going to get more later. It would have just, I just sort of got distracted in between it. So the marshmallow test doesn't directly apply to us, but I think it's just a way to understand what the executive dysfunction is. One other thing, let's talk about coping stuff. What do you have on your desk to fidget with?
anything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I love shuffling cards. That's a big fidget of
Oh,
mine.
that's fun.
Yeah, and like It has a nice sound too,
Yep.
which I don't know,
Yeah, I love it.
sometimes like sounds like tickle my brain in the right way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And recently I was at an ACA Illinois Better Camping for All summit, and we all got these really cool, it's like a big, heavy fidget spinner, but it spins in a few different ways, and the sound
Okay.
it makes is nice, and it's
Yeah.
metal, and it has like a nice hand feel. I also like, just the fidgets that we give to campers too, like the ones that like you push in and then you
In
like
and out, in
pull
and
them
out, in and out.
out, and
Yeah.
yeah, and they make that like noise. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. And then the ones that are like the mesh with the marble in the middle, that is also my
Oh,
favorite. Like that.
okay.
Oh, maybe it's
I love
the
that
this
one
side of the.
too.
I
It's
don't know that
so
one.
I've
nice,
broken
right?
so many of them because I'm playing with them too hard. I keep like two or three in my normal office desk. I'm not recording from
Oh
my
yeah.
normal work desk right now, but
Yeah.
so right now I've been playing with the other end of my ear pods because it's again it's rubbery and
Sure.
whatnot. But yes, that one.
Mhm.
And then I picked up at Tri-State last year. I think 4 Imprint had them. They were the poppets, but it was a ball, and so like
Hmm.
I've popped a few of those as well.
Yeah.
My tendency seems to be like I get so used to fidgeting that I break the fidget because it's just I'm using it, right? So, but the Poppet ball is nice. It's a ball and it's got all those little poppets that kids were really enjoying a couple years ago, but it's got those on it. And so for again, hand feel, sound and whatnot, but I also like having the different pops down at the same time and then like popping them up. But I
Mm.
like it better than the flat sheet because I can hold it in my hand as opposed to like you can do a flat sheet in the hand, but it's not the same hand feel. But I too also am a huge fan of the marble and the mesh.
Yeah,
No.
it's a good one. We'll have to send you one, Travis,
Please.
because
Yeah, send me a link.
they're so good. The other thing is I don't even know what it's called, but it has a brand name. It's like, oh, Canoodle. They were like really big on TikTok like later in the pandemic. And it's
Mm.
like brain games, and like there's all these different shapes, and you have to figure out how to fit them back into their
Oh,
box.
yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah.
tanagrams almost, but
Sure. Yeah, I
like
love
with
tangrams.
balls. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that one is like more like I need to focus on two different mind things, not just like spin something just to have my hands doing something. But I have a really hard time paying attention to a single thing. Even when I'm like, I can't watch TV on a TV, I have to watch TV on a split screen on my phone so that way I can be doing something else at the same
Hmm.
time. It
Hmm.
sounds ridiculous, but that is the only way I can watch TV and pay attention. So, yeah, it really that like canoodle could I think it's called the canoodle. I'll send you a link.
Great.
It's that like keeps my brains, I guess, focused so that way I could pay attention to what's happening in the meeting and also keep that part of my brain that's like I need to do something else satisfied. So that's also really helpful.
I have a bowl of fidgets on my desk, all sorts of different things. The thing I've most been using are these. Do you know the Ono roller? Those two rollers. I have arthritis in my hand, so I don't like those roller things, but it's the same company. These are magnetic and rubbery, and I have four pairs that are all different textures. So that's always going if I'm ever trying to concentrate. What are other things that you do to concentrate when you need to? Actually, let me say one other thing, just to make sure it's said. People with ADHD tend to be very good in emergencies because all of a sudden life is working at our speed, and that means that we can observe more, we can problem solve on the fly more, etc. It's things that aren't moving at that speed that require a bit of tools or techniques or whatever. What are things that you have found you need to do, let's say for work stuff, to get work done?
Yeah, so for me, I am also just like a on the fly person. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And then I also emergencies are like my wheelhouse. I love a good emergency. But something
Totally.
that I have at work that keeps me on track for camp, because people are always like, what do you do in the winter? And it's like playing camp. And a lot of people don't get that. But I have a standard operating of procedures that I have written out of everything that I have to get done each month. So
Wow.
that helps me. Yeah, it took a real long time to
I
make
bet.
it, a few years, I'm not gonna lie. But having that each month and knowing like, okay, so this is the month when I have to redo the website. This is the month when I have, and that has helped me stay on track. Like getting, because we're a curriculum-based camp, so making sure I have this curriculum done by November. It's just so helpful and helps me stay on track. And I've noticed that through the years, like it keeps getting updated as, things change. But for the most part, it keeps me on track for work. As far as personal life, there's no standard operating procedures there, but it's
Sure.
work where I need it the most
Y-
anyway. So
Sure. You can do it one place and then relax in the other, but you can't do it for both. That's really common. How about for you, Kelly?
So I have a giant bulletin board behind my desk and it
Mm,
has to do, in progress, and done. And so
yeah.
those big, so I utilize my Outlook calendar for like the day to day, and I make a to-do list for the day to day, and I work on the to-do list. And if I don't finish something, it moves to the next day, and I don't take
Yeah.
it off until it's fully done. But for the bulletin board, those are the big things. So that is like planning staff training. That is the big stuff. So like right now I have to write a few different standard operating procedures. So until I actually start them, they're they're in the to-do column. And what I really do is usually, so we start down here in the South, we start mid-May with staff training, and our
Mhm,
first week is like the last week of May, early June.
mhm.
So really when I get back from Tri-State every year is when I look at my bulletin board and I go through all of the things that I know I have to do in preparation for camp to start. The board does become a little bit quieter during
Mhm.
the season,
Right.
but during, so really after Tri-State is my prep for summer. And then
Mhm.
once I've had my time off from end of camp, I look at it again and just start putting big things up. Now, if something comes up where it's like we had to plan a CHA clinic for a new hire, well, we didn't have to do CHA Certified Horsemanship Association. We have horses. And so we wouldn't have hosted this clinic if we didn't hire this person. So when we hired her, she needed the certification. So it got on the to do because it was a bigger project. But yeah, so I can add to it at any time. I can move things around. I can take things off if I need to. But that has been a huge help. I wish I had this SOP per month thing because that sounds phenomenal. But so I am a one person show most of the year, and my hardest thing is like keeping on top of, like right now I've got fundraising, marketing, registration, hiring all at the same time. So balls are
Yep.
definitely getting dropped. Unfortunately, it's on the fundraising and marketing side of stuff. However, it'll change next week. Like next week, it'll be a different priority. And I hate that. I wish I could do all the things, but yeah, it's tough.
I think one of the things that helped me the most is accepting that the way that most people say to do things won't work for me. It just that I have to figure out my own way. When I have structure imposed on me, I just get ornery. And so I have to set my own structure. But yeah, so even working on project management with clients and things, I always ask them what they use for project management, but then I never use it because it just doesn't work for me. And I have to, I guess the other point that I really wanted to make about that, and it's why I love the idea of your board, Kelly's, because I have whiteboards and stuff all over the office. I have to see it. That's a pretty common characteristic of ADHD is if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. I have often said in the camp world, drawers are where budgets go to die. And so if it's not out and visible, then it's just not in the mental inventory. And so that's part of the mess is I have to see things to know that they're not done.
Yeah, it's object
Um,
permanence.
yep, exactly. Yeah, totally. So I mean, my desk is littered with index cards sort of layered in priority, including this little sticky uppy thing that these are my most pressing of the many layers of index cards. Um, yeah. So just one more each. One other thing that has helped you figure out and accomplish, because you're both very accomplished, like what are the stuff you had to figure out to get there?
that's a hard question to answer on the fly for someone with ADHD. I mean, I think for me is something that has helped me be able to be where I am is just letting, even before I was diagnosed, just letting everybody know around me that like I just can't do things sometimes and that has to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to call me on it when I'm not, following through on things because my brain will just forget. And it's a lot easier now because I can be like, look, I have ADHD. It's not an excuse. I'm just letting you know that this is how my brain works. I do all these things to make sure that I don't forget things or that things don't fall by the wayside or become last minute, but that's still going to happen no matter how hard I try. So I think that has been the biggest thing is just making sure that I'm hiring a team that is compassionate and has empathy for that. And I think with Gen Z, they right now I feel like they're one of the most compassionate and empathetic generations. I mean, outside of millennials, but they're with us there in that, and I hope that the alphas are just as great as they come into the workforce in like the next couple of years, which is terrifying. But that has definitely helped, just being really transparent and letting my staff and people that I work with on the team know that like it's okay to call me on things because I need that.
I
Right.
think I
Yeah, it's
think there
saying your needs.
yeah, I think that
Well
it's
done.
twofold for me. So one was gaining my supervisor's trust because I
Yep.
remember even in the interview telling him like do not micromanage me. Like you just need to trust that I will get it done in a
Hmm.
way that I need to get it done. And
Hmm.
again, call me on it. But then on the second half, my staff, mainly in the summer, but my staff know if I don't write it down, it's not happening. So if you do not physically see me write it down, or I'm not telling you, okay, I'm writing it down, like if you're not face to face with me or you've called
Yeah.
me over
Yeah.
or whatever, and I haven't told you, like, okay, I've written it down, they know it's not going to happen. So, like, I'll even have staff, my right hand, who's a big listener of our show, and I'm sure she'll listen to this episode, will literally hand me sticky notes
Yeah.
so that because she knows, and she knows if I'm too busy, she just goes, here you go, it's already written down. And so I'm a big sticky note person, and they're all over my desk all the time, kind of like probably like your index cards, Travis. But so she has learned that I need to just I have to have it written down or it doesn't exist. And my staff know that. So, but yeah, but I think gaining my supervisor's trust was a big one because I definitely remember in the interview when he said, "Okay, what do you need from us?" I said, "I need you to not micromanage me." And the other people were like, "Well, that's what he does." But he's done really well doing that, and he knows that like if he starts asking me too many questions, he will say, "Okay, I'm sorry, I'm doing this, but like the board is asking me questions, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get, you know." And so I've learned too to give him extra information when he
Yes.
asks a question
Yeah.
even if it takes me a little bit extra time because then I'm not getting bombarded by a million questions, which distracts me from whatever I am trying to focus on during the
Yeah.
day. And so those two things have definitely helped in figuring out work for sure.
I mean, definitely setting boundaries. I mean, this is one of my problem when I was working for people. I didn't like, I knew I had ADHD, but I didn't know anything else. So I couldn't be upfront about it. I mean, that's part of the reason why I have to work on my own because I just can't handle the structure of others. But I have at times said to a boss, I can't, I have to do it this way. I, it won't work if you micromanage me, but I promise you I will earn it. And yeah, figuring out what other people need is a skill that we all practice a lot, trying to just suss out what it is that helps us get along. Okay, what I want to do is move us on, but I invite everybody to go check out Scamp Life the Other Side to find the next episode where we'll talk a little bit more, and I won't be leading the conversation. We'll talk a little bit more about working with people with ADHD and some coping strategies for that. But I thank you both for sharing so much and so many great ideas. What I'm going to do now is move us on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
So if you have followed Shauna and Kelie here, tool of the week for us is a tool that makes us a better camp director. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the theme, but it can be. And because we bring on people with lots of experiences, we always want to learn more. Shauna, what's your tool of the week?
So I use this like list task management tool called Goblin Tools. It's an app. I just learned that there's a website too, but it lets you pick your neurospicy level. So you can type in like clean the bathroom, and then there's like a bunch of different chilies that you get to pick on. So like if you need it like super broken down, you put it at max chilies, which I think is 5. But then if you just need like clean the toilet, wash the tub, I don't know what are bathroom chores,
Yeah.
it'll give you like 1 chili or 2 chili. I'm always like at the max because I like to also like tick things off too. And the more
Right.
chilies that you do,
Yeah.
even no matter how small the task is, you still get to check something off. And
Mm.
for somebody like me with ADHD, that feels like an accomplishment, even if it's
Sure.
just take the old roll off of the toilet paper holder, like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
still, I did it, like, and that could be a really hard task. I know it's a hard task for me. So I love Goblin Tools for that reason.
That's great. That's great. I'll remind folks that they can go to camphacker.tv/podcast to find the show notes and the links to our tools of the week. Kelie, what's your tool?
So I came across a Jeopardy creator last
Mm.
summer when we were doing policies and procedures. It's called Factile, and you basically create a Jeopardy game. I think you can create other games too for like trivia and stuff, but we used it for that. And my biggest trouble was I tried to save time and built it a couple months before training and then forgot a lot of the answers that I had put in there because I used it also too for like we implemented a new birthday part, like a birthday at camp thing, and I thought it was like tell the nurse your kids have meds, and it was tell the
Yeah.
kitchen staff that they have a birthday that week.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my brain didn't do things, but it's super easy to utilize. It gives you a chance to fill in all the different things and you can assign what amounts, but it's far easier than trying to create Jeopardy with index cards or sticky notes or
Sure.
however we
Yeah.
ever managed to do it when we were all younger. But yeah,
Yeah.
Factile.
Right on. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. My tool of the week, I haven't actually started yet, but just came in the mail. It's a book called The Way of Play by Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, who is an amazing camp supporter, great camp speaker. And the subtitle is Using Little Moments of Big Connection to Raise Calm and Confident Kids. So, having read other stuff of Tina, having heard Tina speak, and seen some of the stuff that she's put out to help parents understand the developmental benefits of camp, I trust that this is going to be a great book. So it is The Way of Play by Dr. Tina Payne Bryson. And again, at camphacker.tv, you can find the links to all of this stuff. So before we go, I'll do it now. Kelie, if people want to follow up with any of the stuff that you've said, how can they get in touch with you?
I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I know I'm old and millennial and still on Facebook. And yeah, so those are the two primary ways that a lot of people find me on Instagram nowadays, but also Kelie, Kelie.cook@pineridgedaycamp.org is my email. But yeah, Instagram seems to be the way everybody finds me. I also am a huge reader, so I've already added that to my wish list, Travis, and I share all of the books that I read on there. So Shauna
Nice.
knows I'm a huge reader of nonfiction. So they're all shared on my Instagram too.
Wonderful. Nonfiction is something I can't do. So, but I love Tina, so I'm going to work through this one. But I do it for the people I care about. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate that. And Shauna, how can people get in touch with you if they have follow-ups?
Yeah, I am on Instagram as well. The Day Camp Pro on there is a big title that I took over. I'm not the only Day Camp Pro, but I am the Day Camp Pro on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Hold on.
The Day Camp Pro. And you can also email me at the letter S Guglielmo at lpzoo.org. And that is the easiest email that I check that one. I never check my personal email, so that's the one I give to everybody. And I
That's
have
awesome.
also added that book to my downloaded on Audible, so I will be listening.
Yeah, right on.
Much like Kelie, yeah, we're big readers. It's probably back to our original point of being able to hyper focus as a child and be quiet
Yeah.
and read.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you to you both. I'm grateful to be here and I'm looking forward to our discussion on your show. I want to spend just 1 second before we sign off and invite you to check out another Go Camp Pro podcast called The Pudding. I host it with Dr. Mandy Baker, and in that show, we explore the current research that's going on about summer camp, speaking with the researchers, all of whom have strong connections to camp, that gave them the passion to study it and help the rest of us prove the value of summer camp with real research, not just our hearts. So please check us out. Search your podcast app for The Pudding. And thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.